Yes, hi, I'm Kim Frankena from GAO, and I wanted to ask Ambassador Vedder to elaborate on something you mentioned, two things you mentioned. One, you mentioned that the agreement includes building up the partner, recognizing the partner's capacity and that they needed to build up capacity. And I was wondering whether you could elaborate on that. And second, you mentioned that the administration is looking at implementation and trying to prepare itself for that. And I was hoping that you might be able to elaborate upon that, not just in terms of changes, but also whether, say the new SPS commitments or the nature of the kind of SPS issues we face might need some attention.
Sure. Well, I think first it's important to recognize that while USTR is the one sitting behind the microphone, we negotiate these agreements with other U.S. agencies at the table, and it's very much an interagency endeavor. And so these new SPS commitments, which Jaime rightly notes that the dairy industry championed from the very early stages of this negotiation, U.S. regulators were at the table looking at whether, in fact, those new SPS rules would allow us to be able to keep and maintain and implement the high food safety and animal and plant health standards that we have here. So that has been the process throughout. But that said, when you look at implementing the agreement and the changes we'll have to make, we want to make sure everyone understands the agreement and the implications of that. If you take, for example, safeguards that we put in place in the dairy sector, we want to make sure that we're accurately tracking imports and the pace at which those imports come in so that if a safeguard is triggered, we're able to immediately apply it on triggering. And that we're all on the same page in terms of setting up our institutions and structures to allow the access that we promised, but also enforce appropriately. And so those are the kinds of things that we would be looking at. And on the capacity building side, when it comes to Vietnam and labor, I know we've worked and will work with the ILO, for example, to look at those standards. The United States has already been working with Vietnam, who drafted a new food safety law very recently. USDA worked with a number of industry groups from the United States to help Vietnam draft that law and provide examples of how science-based decision-making can be used as an underpinning in that law. So there are a number of both ongoing and new efforts we'll be making with other countries to help make sure that they're implementing those measures in accordance with the TPP standards. And that's something that our folks on the capacity building side could follow up with you about if you like.